But I don't want to put the pressure on her to break down the relationship between her and her siblings, saying,
At just 21 years old, one of Jon and Kate Gosselin's daughters is finally opening up about her childhood. And the truth might surprise you. After years of living in the spotlight as one of the famous Gosselin sextuplets, she's breaking her silence and sharing details that fans have never heard before. From life on camera to the struggles behind closed doors, her story gives a rare glimpse into what it was really like growing up under constant observation. Join us as we uncover the untold side of Hannah Gosselin's life and explore what it means for her, her family, and the Gosselin legacy. Raised for ratings. Hannah Gosselin was born on May 10, 2004, into a world that was already moving toward fame. Before she could speak or walk, her life was taking shape around plans for a television show. She was one of the well-known Gosselin sextuplets: Hannah, Alexis, Leah, Joel, Aiden, and Colin, who joined their older twin sisters, Maddie and Cara. The idea of a family with 8 young children felt new and exciting to the public. The Gosselin sextuplets became a phrase people instantly recognized, and networks quickly saw them as a perfect story to follow. Because of this, filming began early. Contracts were signed before the children truly understood what cameras meant. Hannah grew up surrounded by producers, equipment, and a schedule that shaped her daily routine. Expectations were placed on the kids before they even knew what expectations were. Their childhood would unfold on screen, and their personalities would be shaped not only by growing up, but also by what viewers would see and react to. In 2007, Jon and Kate Plus 8 premiered on TLC, and it immediately pulled in viewers from all over the country. America loved watching a couple raise 8 young children while dealing with the challenges that came with such a large family. The show was promoted as warm, funny, and real. It focused on Kate's structured approach to parenting and Jon's calmer, more laid-back personality. But the story that people saw on TV was carefully shaped. The public saw a family working together. Behind the scenes, the pressure to film, entertain, and maintain a certain image was growing. As the show became a hit, Kate was pushed into the spotlight as America's tough supermom. This label influenced how the children were treated and how the world viewed them. Each child began to have a place in the show's narrative, even if it did not always match who they truly were. The Gosselin house soon changed from a private home to a working set. Cameras were placed in many rooms, always ready to capture the next moment. Breakfast routines, bedtime, arguments, laughter, and discipline were filmed and turned into episodes. Nothing stayed personal for long. For Hannah, childhood events that should have been simple family memories became content for national television. Birthdays, celebrations, and even everyday moments were shared with millions of viewers. Growing up meant being watched all the time, and every part of her life was recorded from beginning to end. And things only grew more intense as the show continued, revealing the cracks that cameras never showed. Profit over parenthood. Hannah grew up in a home where everything had a rule, a label, and a schedule. Kate Gosselin was known for her strict approach to parenting, and inside the house, this structure was even more intense than what viewers saw on television. Clothing was color-coded, so each child had assigned colors. Meals were set to exact times. Chores and routines were clearly laid out, and there was little room for errors or changes. For very young children, this level of control created pressure they couldn't fully understand. Instead of having space to explore and make mistakes, the kids learned early that everything they did needed to be correct, neat, and efficient. The idea of perfection became something they had to follow every day. Hannah, who was naturally more emotional and expressive, carried the weight of this perfectionism from a young age. She learned to stay quiet, stay organized, and follow the rules to avoid tension. While the show presented happy moments and cute childhood scenes, Hannah often felt something different behind the cameras. She was sensitive, and the constant need to perform made things heavier for her. Smiling, behaving, and looking cheerful became part of her daily life, even when she didn't feel that way. There were times when her real emotions slipped through. Viewers sometimes noticed moments where Hannah looked upset or withdrawn. These moments were brief, and many fans did not understand them, but they showed the reality of a child trying to manage emotions under pressure. Hannah learned early to push her feelings down so the show could go on. This emotional suppression stayed with her for years, forming a quiet struggle beneath the polished family image. What the audience saw on television was carefully edited. Viewers saw a busy home filled with structure and humor. They saw organized routines and playful scenes. But the real experience for the children was different. Filming was long and tiring. Privacy was limited. Even simple moments, like eating breakfast or getting ready for bed, were shared with millions of strangers. Hannah often felt the fear of disappointing the brand their family had become. She knew that what happened at home wasn't just personal. It affected the show, the audience, and the image her mother wanted to protect. These pressures planted early signs of strain between Hannah and Kate, long before Hannah ever spoke out. And as Hannah grew older, the cracks in their world became harder for her to ignore. Secrets of their split. As Jon and Kate's marriage began to fall apart, the world was watching more closely than ever. Their show's ratings were climbing, and every tense moment between them felt magnified by cameras, headlines, and online chatter. What might have been a private struggle for most couples became entertainment for millions. Their disagreements, distance, and emotional exhaustion were recorded and replayed for audiences, making the breakdown of their relationship feel even heavier. When they announced their split in 2009, the public response only added more pressure. The children were suddenly placed at the center of competing storylines, with fans choosing sides, gossip outlets framing each parent differently, and the family trying to function while the world judged each step. For the kids, this meant trying to understand their parents' separation, while also living inside a media storm they couldn't escape. After the divorce, the show moved forward without Jon. His absence changed the entire tone of the program. Kate was now the face of the series, shouldering both the role of single parent and public figure. Inside the home, this shift carried a strong emotional weight. The cameras stayed on, but the family dynamic had changed. What once showed two parents managing a busy household now focuses on one parent doing everything alone. As the household pressure increased, small cracks began to appear in how the children coped, even if they didn't have the words to express it. Hannah showed early signs of feeling uneasy, withdrawn, or misunderstood. She often seemed unsure of where she fit in the new structure of the family. The constant filming and the emotional strain around her created a sense of instability that she carried quietly. These early feelings marked the beginning of emotional wounds that weren't visible to the audience, but were very real for a young child trying to find safety in a changing home. And this is where things start to take an even more complicated turn. Beyond the footage. Hannah often describes her early years as a time when order mattered more than affection. Everything in the house followed a strict schedule. Meals, bedtime, chores, and even the way the children behaved in front of cameras. From the outside, it looked organized. Inside, it felt heavy and tense. Hannah remembers the focus on rules being so strong that it left very little room for comfort or calm moments. She felt that being good was not about being happy or expressing herself, but about avoiding anything that might create more tension. Because cameras were always around, the fear of making mistakes grew stronger. Hannah knew that if she cried, argued, or even looked upset, it might end up on TV. This made her feel like she had to control her feelings all the time. Instead of learning how to talk about her emotions, she learned how to hide them. The pressure to stay quiet, still, and well-behaved became part of daily life. Over time, this shaped how she saw herself and how safe she felt inside her own home. For Hannah, one of the most painful memories from childhood was watching her brother Colin slowly slip out of the family's routine. At first, she noticed small changes. He wasn't at the table when everyone else ate. He didn't join the rest of the children when they played outside. She often saw him being separated from the group without explanation. As a young child, she didn't understand why it was happening, but she knew something wasn't right. Over time, the differences became impossible for her to ignore. While the other kids followed a busy schedule, Colin was kept apart. Hannah recalls days when he wasn't allowed to play outdoors with the others, and times when he seemed to live on a completely different planet than his siblings. This created a sense of confusion and fear for her, because she didn't know what he had done to deserve different treatment, or if something similar could happen to her. Then there was the containment room, a place Hannah remembers as deeply upsetting. She says she saw Colin being put in this room for long periods, and as a child, she wasn't given answers about why he was there. Today, she speaks about those moments with clear discomfort. She says it is one of the strongest memories that shaped her understanding of how unsafe the environment could feel. This brought a mix of emotions for her. She felt guilt for not understanding what he was going through at the time, confusion about why it was allowed to happen, and fear as she looked back on how close she had been to the same environment. The emotional weight of these memories followed her into adulthood, shaping how she views family, safety, and trust. And what happened next only made the situation even more intense. The truth she buried. Hannah kept quiet for many reasons. One of the biggest was loyalty. From an early age, she was taught that the family was a team and that they represented something bigger than themselves. Their life was tied to a show, contracts, and public deals. Speaking out risked more than private trouble. It could affect the family's income, legal agreements, and how producers and networks viewed them. For a child, that is a heavy burden to carry. Fear also played a major role. The household rules and the presence of cameras made it risky to challenge what was happening. Hannah learned that certain topics were dangerous to bring up. She understood that saying something could lead to conflict, punishment, or more control. The idea that telling the truth would change what people thought about the family made her hold back. She chose silence as a way to keep the peace and protect the image the family had been told to maintain. The consequences of speaking out felt very real. Contracts and public promises meant the family had things to lose. There were adults who would react strongly if internal problems became public. For Hannah, a child still growing up and learning how the world worked, the safest option often seemed to be staying quiet rather than risking everything by revealing painful truths. On television, Kate was shown as a strong, no-nonsense mother who ran a tight ship. Many viewers admired her efficiency and praised her for managing a large family. That version became the dominant story about the Gosselins. People who watched the show developed a clear image of Kate based on edited episodes and public appearances. Hannah lived with a different reality. At home, the mood, the rules, and the treatment of certain children did not always match the public portrayal. This created a deep disconnect for her. Even with the pain she experienced, Hannah still had love for her mother. She acknowledged that no parent is perfect. This made her position complicated. She did not want to destroy her mother's reputation or harm relationships within the family. At the same time, the trauma she carried pushed her toward independence. As Hannah grew older, she began to see that a different life was possible. She wanted privacy, normal teenage experiences, and a chance to make mistakes away from cameras and schedules. That desire built slowly, mixing relief with guilt. Choosing to leave and later speak in measured ways showed the start of her independence. Her silence was not simple obedience. It was a survival choice made in a system that valued image over inner life. Next, we look at the moment she finally left and how that decision shaped everything that came after. Breaking the cycle. By her mid-teens, Hannah had begun spending more time away from the household where she grew up. At first, these visits to her father, Jon Gosselin, were quiet and cautious. Jon noticed things in how she moved and spoke that suggested she was carrying a lot of stress. She was more anxious than other teens, often watching her surroundings and staying guarded in conversations. Small signs of hesitation before answering, a tightness in her voice, and an urge to avoid certain topics made Jon realize she was not simply a normal teenager dealing with typical problems. Over time, Hannah felt more at ease around Jon. The visits became longer and less secretive. She started to open up in small ways about her daily life, her worries, and how different it felt to be somewhere without cameras and strict rules. Jon offered a space where she could relax, speak freely, and make ordinary teen decisions. That gradual comfort mattered. It gave Hannah a clearer view of what life could be when she was not constantly performing or trying to protect the family image. Jon understood that Hannah's decision was about more than comfort. It was about her well-being and emotional health. He saw how much she had been affected by years of public scrutiny and household control. The custody change in 2018 was done quietly compared to the media storms of earlier years, but it still carried strong reactions. Kate objected and showed resistance, as expected in a family already divided by public disputes. The legal process moved forward, and Jon was granted full custody of Hannah. This shift created new tensions within the family. Some siblings stayed with Kate. Others developed closer ties to Jon. The split in the sextuplets circle became more visible as family loyalties shifted and contact patterns changed. A major development that followed was Colin leaving the behavioral institution where he had been placed. He later joined Jon's household, reuniting with Hannah. For both siblings, living with their father offered a different daily rhythm and more privacy. The escape and the custody change marked a clear turning point in Hannah's life, a move from a filmed childhood toward something more ordinary and private. Next, we'll look at how life with Jon helped Hannah heal, and what new challenges she still faced. Breaking from control. When Hannah moved in with her father, Jon, daily life changed in ways she had never fully known before. For the first time, she had privacy. She could close a door and have a space that was hers alone. She could make choices about clothing, friends, and how to spend her free time without thinking about cameras or producers. This simple privacy mattered a great deal. It let her rest without always performing for an audience. Genuine affection also became part of her routine. Jon offered consistent attention in ways that felt different from what she had experienced before. He listened when she wanted to talk and gave her the freedom to process hard memories at her own pace. That reduced pressure helped Hannah start to learn what calm felt like. Over time, small, steady acts of care added up into a safer environment where she could begin to heal. Teenage freedom arrived slowly but surely. Hannah learned to make ordinary choices that had been hard to make before. She could choose classes, hang out with friends, or go out without worrying that each move would become content. She could try new hobbies, make mistakes, and not have those mistakes filmed and turned into commentary. For a teenager who had spent much of her childhood inside tight routines, these freedoms felt both new and essential. They let her test who she was outside the role assigned by a TV show. Jon's role in this shift was important. He worked to rebuild their relationship with patience and openness. He noticed small signs of stress and responded with care rather than judgment. He encouraged Hannah to speak when she felt ready and respected her boundaries when she did not. From his perspective, the priority was Hannah's emotional recovery, not public attention. He tried to create predictable routines that were gentle, not strict, and to show support in practical ways by helping with school, attending appointments, and being present during moments when she needed help. The shift also changed family relationships. Contact with siblings who remained with Kate became less frequent and more complicated. Phone calls and visits were sometimes awkward. Differences in upbringing and loyalty created emotional distance that did not heal quickly. The long years of separation built new barriers, mistrust, competing memories, and different expectations about contact and support. For Hannah, these fractures meant learning to hold love for her siblings while also protecting her own mental health. Reconnecting required time, careful boundaries, and honest conversations that were not always easy to have. Next, we'll explore how Hannah and her siblings began to speak out and what that meant for the family moving forward. Children tell all. As an adult, Hannah has chosen a quiet way to share her experience. In interviews, she speaks calmly and carefully. She describes pain, confusion, and the strain of growing up on television. But she stops short of harsh attacks. Her tone is measured. She offers facts about what she lived through and how it felt, without using extreme language. This approach makes her statements feel personal and believable. She says she still loves her mother and recognizes that no parent is perfect. Hannah's restraint shows that she wants acknowledgement more than revenge. She wants people to understand how the past shaped her, not to destroy anyone's reputation. Colin's public statements have been far more direct and intense. He has accused his mother of mistreatment, beginning when he was a child. He says the treatment started when he was around 8 or 9 years old and escalated over time. Colin alleges he was singled out, punished more harshly than his siblings, and often kept away from daily family life. He has claimed he was restrained, zip-tied, and locked in a room at times, with surveillance cameras monitoring him. These claims are stark and disturbing. Colin's testimony pushed the family story into a new and darker place, forcing many to reassess what they thought they knew about life behind the cameras. Kate has publicly defended her actions. She has said Colin had medical and behavioral diagnoses, and that decisions about his care were made with professionals involved. In her statements, she framed the steps she took as responses to real concerns, not abuse. This version of events conflicts with what Colin and others describe. The family split has hardened into clear camps. Mady and some siblings have stood with Kate publicly. Jon's circle, and now Colin and Hannah to differing degrees, have challenged Kate's account. Hannah sits between these positions. She keeps her voice cautious, not wanting to inflame fights, yet wanting the truth to be heard. The differing narratives have left sibling relationships strained and public opinion divided. with each new interview adding tension rather than closure. Up next, how Hannah rebuilt her life and what choices she made after speaking out. From sextuplet to self. Hannah finished high school in 2023. Graduation marked a clear step away from the filmed childhood she had known. Around the same time, she launched a skincare brand called Gosselin Girl Beauty. The business gave her a way to create something of her own, separate from the family's TV identity. She worked on product ideas, packaging, and how to present a brand that reflected her values. Starting the company meant learning about marketing, customer service, and the basics of running a small business. It also meant she could control how she appeared publicly. Instead of being presented by producers, Hannah could choose her own voice and image. This move into entrepreneurship showed she wanted to build a future based on her choices and skills, not just her last name. Hannah also focused on her health and appearance in ways that felt personal and private. She and her father publicly shared that they had lost a combined 75 pounds. The weight loss journey was presented as a joint effort to improve well-being and confidence. For Hannah, the change in her body and how she dressed was part of taking control over her life. She started making style choices that matched how she felt, not what a show required. Public appearances after the weight loss showed a more confident young woman. Fans and media noticed the difference, but for Hannah, it was about feeling comfortable in her own skin and showing up as herself. Hannah's personal life also moved forward. She began dating model Lennon Johnson Jr. These relationships were steps toward normal teenage and young adult experiences. Dating, going out, and building a private life. She has been careful about what she shares publicly, trying to keep many parts of her life private. Living outside the constant glare of cameras allowed Hannah to try things that other young people take for granted. Small freedoms like late-night talks with friends, private dates, and personal choices helped her feel like an ordinary young woman rather than a TV character. Next up, how Hannah's cautious reunions with family began and what that looked like. The attempt at reconciliation. Between 2023 and 2024, Hannah began to restart communication with her mother, Kate. These conversations were cautious and deliberate. They focused on neutral topics such as school, daily life, and updates about family events. Hannah kept the discussions surface level, avoiding any direct confrontation about past trauma or disagreements. The goal was not to force a resolution, but to slowly rebuild a line of communication. For Hannah, even these small interactions were significant steps, showing that she could engage with her mother on her own terms and without pressure. Hannah's approach to forgiveness is thoughtful and measured. She has made it clear that forgiving does not mean erasing or forgetting the past. Instead, it is about finding personal peace and releasing some of the emotional weight she has carried for years. Choosing to reconnect reflects maturity, showing that Hannah can acknowledge her pain while also deciding how she wants to relate to her mother moving forward. This balance between honesty and caution demonstrates her growth from a child who felt trapped under constant observation to a young adult making deliberate choices about family and boundaries. Currently, Kate maintains a reduced public presence and makes limited statements about the family. Hannah interprets her mother's silence in different ways. Sometimes it feels like a lack of acknowledgement, while other times it is simply an opportunity to engage on neutral, controlled terms. Hannah has learned to navigate this carefully, protecting her own emotional well-being while exploring what reconciliation might look like in the future. Next, we'll see how Hannah continues to shape her life as an independent young adult while staying connected to the family she grew up with. Fame's lasting damage. Today, the The Gosselin family lives in very different places. The oldest twins, Maddie and Kara, reside in New York. 4 of the sextuplets continue to live with Kate in North Carolina. Hannah and Colin remain with Jon in Pennsylvania. This geographic separation reflects the custody arrangements and personal choices each family member has made. For the children, it means that everyday life, family routines, and celebrations are no longer shared in the way they once were. Distance has become a practical and emotional reality that shapes how they interact with one another. Even years after the cameras went off, the emotional impact of growing up in the public eye continues. True family reunions remain rare. While there are private calls and cautious attempts to connect, unresolved tensions and old wounds persist. The separation, combined with the differing experiences under Kate and Jon's care, has created lasting gaps in trust and understanding. For Hannah and her siblings, reconnecting requires patience, care, and often a step-by-step approach that respects everyone's feelings. Despite the fractures, the siblings share a unique bond. Growing up on reality television shaped them in ways that outsiders cannot fully understand. The mixture of fame, strict parenting, and public scrutiny left a shared emotional footprint. Hannah, Colin, and their siblings carry the memory of being watched, judged, and expected to perform, a reality that has shaped their perspectives and relationships. Only they can truly understand the complexities of that childhood and what it means for their lives today. At the same time, there are many challenges. Years of silence have created emotional distance, making trust harder to establish. Both Hannah and Kate remember past events differently, which can cause misunderstandings and frustration. Public attention adds another layer of difficulty. Any interaction, no matter how small, is observed, dissected, and often judged by fans and media. The scrutiny makes it difficult for either of them to relax fully or be entirely open, slowing the process of rebuilding their relationship. That's the story of Hannah Gosselin growing up in the spotlight, finding her voice, and building a life of her own. From childhood on camera to starting her own business and reclaiming her independence, she's shown resilience and courage every step of the way. While her family's journey is far from simple, Hannah continues to navigate it on her own terms, creating a future that's truly hers. If you found Hannah's story as fascinating and moving as we did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into untold Hollywood stories and the real lives behind the cameras.